Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Crowdfunding for Sport webinar in partnership with Sport England. I just want to make sure you can hear my audio, so please let me know in the chat box if you can hear me with these headphones. That'd be fab. Today's session, we'll be hearing from Rebecca Anderson from Sport England. She's going to talk us through the funds that we have available for eligible projects. Also, we're going to hear from a wonderful project owner. So Nikki Wood will be joining us from Weston Gig Pilots Club as well to tell us all about their recent crowdfunding campaign that was, of course, supported by our funds from Sport England. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We have allowed an hour for this session, but that does include a Q&A with yourselves towards the end. So please do make use of the chat box, which you should find on the right hand of your screen. Thank you for everybody that's popped those messages in so far. Feel free to introduce yourselves. Let us know what club you're representing, whereabouts you are in the country, or if you've already got your idea for your crowdfunding campaign, let us know what kind of thing you're hoping to raise money for. We will get through as many of those questions as we can do towards the end of the session. Hopefully, we'll cover some of those off as we go through the slides as well. The whole session is being recorded, and we will make sure we send out that recording to you as part of a follow-up email after the session. Don't worry though, you won't feature in the recording. We can't actually see you today. You'll be able to see us, see the slides. However, we cannot see who's in the virtual room. So do feel free to have a cup of tea, maybe even your lunch, and just kind of absorb the content and obviously use that chat box. If you do find that you have any issues with your internet connection, you should be able to just tap the refresh button, which will be up towards your browser bar on your screen, and you should come straight back into the live room. We'll make sure that we use the chat box as well. I've got my wonderful colleague Charlie, who will be sitting kind of in the chat box, chatting away to you guys, answering any of those questions, but also feeding through any resources, so links to the different resources that we have on offer that we're talking about throughout today's session. We've got a lot to get through, so without further ado, let's get started. So for some of you here today, crowdfunding as a concept of raising money for your particular sports club might be quite a new idea to you. You might not have much of an idea as to what crowdfunding itself is. So the idea behind crowdfunding is to go out and actually utilize your network. So you're going to talk to your communities and raise money from those around you via a digital platform in this case. So Crowdfunder UK has been around for about 10 years. We're in our 10th year now, and it's the UK's leading rewards-based crowdfunding platform. We'll go into more detail to talk you through what we mean by rewards. Hi, Nikki. So Nikki's just joining us. This is Nikki, our wonderful project owner, who we'll be talking to a little bit later. For now, though, Nikki, would you mind just popping your camera and mic off? They should be at the top of your screen there. And then we'll be able to bring you back in a little bit later. Thank you. Okay, so a reward is a benefit of some kind in return for a financial contribution. So in this case, for you guys, it's going to be things like coaching sessions, maybe sponsorship that you could offer for, putting banners up around the club's field, for example. But we'll look at some brilliant examples and some inspiration for that a little bit further on. Essentially, it's a brilliant way to connect with your crowd, to incentivize people to maybe give a little bit more and to get behind you, and to thank people for their help in getting you to your fundraising goal. Along with the financial raise, there are some really wonderful benefits to setting up a crowdfunding campaign and obviously going live with that. It's a brilliant way to actually validate your idea. So to build confidence in what you're doing and to see if there's an appetite for what you're raising money for. It's a brilliant low risk way to actually see if there is a group of people out there who really want to see this happen, that are maybe going to be the beneficiaries of your project idea. And of course, with sports, that's going to be your existing members and your wider community, to see if people really want to actually have this idea come to life. Just to answer Judith's question, you will get a recording to this whole session. So we don't send through the slides as such. However, we do record this and we will send it out as part of an email with some brilliant links to resources as well. The next benefit is that you're going to build awareness around what you're doing. You're going to get people excited about the project coming to life and really create a buzz within the community and within your sports club as to what is going to happen when this money is raised. You may well even get noticed by a wider audience, and we will give you the tools and resources to learn how to do that effectively. Everybody that supports your campaign will by nature become an advocate for your club and even for your sport. So you're going to build an engaged audience that will support you throughout not only the crowdfunding journey, but then beyond as well. We see some really lovely, long-lasting relationships get developed through the process of running a crowdfunding campaign. By making use of the resources that we have on offer on our platform, you're going to build a really good toolkit to be able to get you crowdfunding like a pro and develop some brilliant transferable skills as well to be able to actually roll out into different parts of your life and obviously of the club as well. Things like networking, things like obviously digitally fundraising, which is going to be new to some of you, creating engaging content, lots of brilliant, invaluable skills that you can use for different areas. And of course, the extra funding and support that we have on offer, this is going to be the main draw primarily, I think, for sports clubs, especially those of you here today. We work with national and regional partners that may well support eligible or your particular club project with extra funding pledges. And we've got, of course, Sport England here today, who are going to talk about their pots of money, their funds that they have available that your club could well access as part of a crowdfunding campaign. The brilliant thing about this as well is it's a really streamlined process because you're creating your campaign page, which you're going to go live to your audience with. That becomes part of your application. And it can be a really wonderful opportunity to really maximize your fundraising potential because you can actually receive pots of money from multiple funding partners. You don't have to choose just one partner that you've been matched with. So it can be a really exciting way to boost your fundraising. Now, obviously, we know what works well when it comes to crowdfunding, and we know that sports and sports clubs works incredibly well. And this is for a few different reasons. Firstly, you have a captive audience already. You have a network at your fingertips. You have club members, you have volunteers, you have potentially suppliers and sponsors already that you can contact and kind of rally around you in order to not only donate to the project, but share and maybe offer rewards. So all of these wonderful things that we talk about making a successful campaign, you have the ability to do that by accessing your existing networks. Hiya, Nikki. Nikki's having just a little bit of trouble with accessing. It's okay. Hopefully she'll be able to sit in the wings for a minute there. And the other thing, which is really useful, is you're all by nature a bunch of competitive people, and that is going to work in your favor. We know that the most successful crowdfunding campaigns are a collaborative effort. So we always encourage project owners or those that are kind of heading up the campaign to bring in others around you and create a real team that can help drive that campaign to success. And by being competitive, you're going to want to be the ones that are able to, create the best content, raise as much as possible. Maybe you're going to think about holding fundraising events and actually setting up your crowdfunding campaign page to allow you to have people fundraise on your behalf. It's a really exciting thing to do. Maybe you'll set different teams against one another to see how much money they could raise as part of the campaign. So some really brilliant things that you can utilize, which work really well for sports clubs. Just want to talk a little bit about our kind of impact numbers so far. So as I said, we've been doing this now for a little while. We've worked with our sports partners for a good few years now, and we've seen some wonderful results from that. So to date, we've had over 4,000 sports specific projects come through the platform, and that's with over 300,000 people supporting them. So supporters are the ones that are donating to those campaigns. They collectively have raised over £26 million to make their ideas happen, which is fabulous. And as well as that, they have received £8.4 million worth of extra funding. And that's just from our sports partners alone. That doesn't take into account any of those additional funds from other partners, such as local authorities, or maybe some of our national organisations that we work with. So it could be a really, really great way to shift your focus from traditional fundraising onto a digital platform where we can support you in order to not only have a successful campaign, but access that additional money and then really leave a legacy of fundraising impact as well. Okay, so to talk us through a little bit more about the funds available from Sport England, we have Rebecca Anderson here. Hi, Rebecca, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Zoe?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
No worries.
I will jump off screen and leave you because I know that you've got information to talk everybody through. So just give me a shout.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you all for joining us today out of your lunch times. And just to kind of reiterate, I know Zoe's touched on a few bits already, but just make the most of the time and listen to all the fab advice from Zoe and the Q&A that'll be happening. Likewise, the team at Sport England are also on hand. So just drop us an email if you have any specific questions, either during the session or following on from the webinar. Our first fund is Active Together. This is a 7.5 million lottery fund that launched back in May 2020 now. It's a fund that was designed to help support, initially it was designed to help support kind of community sports clubs, organisations recover from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The funding has evolved to kind of support now about recovery, reinvention, and building resilience within your community organisation. So, for example, your project could include kind of fundraising for essential maintenance works that need to take place, which would have normally been covered by income, but it's obviously been lost over the past couple of years. Pay for any adjustments needed to accommodate social distancing measures, running new activity to meet demand, helping your community recover, unforeseen events continuing to impact on your finances, for example, fire, theft, vandalism, or adverse weather. And ultimately, a lot of the things that are coming through now lately is in the emergency energy crisis. So obviously changing any adjustments to your facility to help kind of support that. The fund's been incredibly successful today. And as Zoe touched on, feedback from organisations, aside from the initial raise to help them as an organisation, but of experiencing those wider benefits, whether that be investment on top of your campaign already, new members, reaching outside of your normal audience, and even new skills for you as an organisation. Within Active Together, we've supported nearly 700 successful campaigns so far, covering a variety of sports, and we have plenty of budget left for other organisations out there. Variety of sports, variety of raises, so whether that be kind of £3,000 to up to £70,000. We've already had as many kind of campaigns within that spectrum. Our other fund that's live at the minute is Places and Spaces, which did have a total budget of 7 million lottery funding. This fund's a capital fund aimed at community sport and physical activity groups that are looking to create, enhance, or redevelop their sports facility for the benefit of their wider community. The key focus of this fund was the Commonwealth Games that were hosted in Birmingham, summer of 2022. We really wanted to celebrate that, so we were looking for campaigns that help unite communities as part of this, creating or enhancing facilities to help people get more physically active. This fund in particular is closing on the 25th of August, just to kind of make everybody aware from that, kind of a year on from the Games. However, Active Together will still be alive and well for a long time after that. We've developed with Crowdfunder, as we kind of understand this could be a kind of new and novel approach for sport clubs, even though you're very familiar with kind of fundraising events as a kind of sector. So we decided to kind of develop a lot of wraparound support and resource to help you create and run a successful campaign, as Zoe's touched on. We recognise that, as we said, a new concept to a lot of people, so really do utilise all the free support and expertise on offer. I hope you enjoy this session. I'll hand back over to Zoe and the team to discuss things in a little bit more detail, and I'll be back for any extra questions at the end of the session.
Amazing. Thanks, Rebecca. And yeah, we'd love to have you as part of the Q&A, so that's fab if you can hang around as well. So any questions that you might have, guys, about the fund itself, please do pop them into the chat box and we'll make sure we can catch up with Rebecca a little bit later on. Okay, so in terms of the mechanics of how the funding works, I just want to do a little bit of an overview. So essentially with this particular fund, the Sport England funds, I should say, there's two currently active at the minute. One is due to close in the next month or so. You will set up your crowdfunding campaign. You will make sure that you are very happy with how that looks, that you're ready to go live, essentially. You want to make sure that you've included all of the relevant content, which we need you to. We'll make sure we cover that for you in a moment, and the resources on offer will cover that for you too. At that point, you will put in an application via your crowdfunding page, so via your crowdfunding dashboard, we call it, to Sport England. Ultimately, you would want that to be approved straight away. If there's any reason why it's not approved initially, Sport England will be in contact with you to work with you to make sure that you can make any amendments needed, for example, to boost the kind of campaign page itself to enable them to approve you as long as your project itself is eligible. Once you have that approval, you will then go on to launch your crowdfunding project. We always recommend getting approved for your extra funding first of all, before you go live, because it's a brilliant thing to actually shout about to your supporters and say, look, this is our crowdfunding campaign. We've already been approved for some extra funding from Sport England. We need you to get behind us to make this a reality and to release that funding pledge and to secure it. So you'll go live with your crowdfunding campaign. You'll start reaching out to your closest network and bring in some donations. Once you've hit your required milestone of raising 25% of your initial target yourselves from your crowd, I should say, a required amount of supporters, and you can see that within the table on the slide here. Those supporters need to be individuals, so they need to be somebody with their own bank account and somebody with their individual email address. That is what we will class as an individual supporter. So let's take the example of a club that needs to raise up to £5,000. In the first instance, to hit this initial milestone, they would need to raise 25% of that from 25 different supporters. Once that milestone is reached, they will see a pledge arrive on their page from Sport England. It will go into their target raised so far. So suddenly you get a nice big, let's say they're going to give you 50%, you get £2,500 land on your page from Sport England. And also Sport England will be listed as a supporter. It's a really exciting time to then thank everybody that supported you so far and go back out to your community and continue to crowdfund, using that extra funding pledge as a bit of a catalyst, if you like, to say, look, the pledge is now on our page. All we need to do now is hit 100% of our target, so that £5,000 total, in order to secure that money. I do want to just reiterate, and this is in all of the pledge criteria documents and on the funding page itself, but that extra funding pledge is part of your initial target. So in essence, you would raise £2,500 yourselves, and Sport England would be pledging £2,500, and that would give you your £5,000 total of your target. It can be a little bit of a confusing point sometimes, that people think they need to raise the whole amount and then it will be in addition. The £2,500 in this case would be in addition. It's not, it's part and parcel of that target. So when you're setting your target, think about the possibility that you could be getting up to 50% of that from potentially Sport England by way of an extra funding pledge. Once you've hit 100% of your target, you have secured all of the money that you've raised so far, including that extra funding pledge from Sport England. So when your project closes, you will receive a payout as a successful crowdfunding campaign. One payout will come from the crowd, so all the money you raised from your community and from your network, and you'll receive an additional payout from any extra funding pots of money as well. So you will receive two potential payouts. The first from your crowd, you'll receive that in around 7 days or so. It can take a little bit longer to receive any extra funding pledges because there's a little bit of due diligence that we need to make sure that you do in order to receive those pots of money. So just be mindful of that when setting your timeframes as well. If you still have time left as a live campaign, however, once you've hit 100% of your target, you can continue to raise money, and we call that a stretch target. It's an additional goal that you can set, and that money raised might cover, the wish list items, if you like, to really make your project as enhanced and as impressive as it can be. It might be going towards kind of some additional things you want to add into the renovation, or some marketing, or whatever it might be that will really make this project sing. Those can be the types of things that you can add into a potential stretch target amount that you'd like to raise. I just want to highlight as well, for those of you on the call today, we do have another sport partner that we're working with currently, and that's Sport Wales. They have the Place for Sports Fund. Now, with this fund, again, it's up to 50% match funding of your initial target, up to a maximum of £15,000 per project. So this particular fund is looking to support clubs or community organisations that are looking to create, redevelop, or enhance their sports facilities for the benefit of the community. So many of our extra funding partners are really focused on that community impact, and that's the same for sports as well. So do think about how your particular project is not only going to impact positively your existing club members, but what does it do for the community as a whole? When you're applying for extra funding through our platform, it's actually really lovely and straightforward. So when you're putting together your crowdfunding campaign, you're going to let us know basic information such as whereabouts you are in the country, whether you are a charity, a not-for-profit organisation, or whether you are a for-profit organisation. You're also going to let us know in a whole section of extra funding when putting your page together, who is going to benefit from your project. Who are you going to be working with? So what kind of demographic of the community are you going to be working with? What are those potential outcomes as well for your project coming to life? So that is going to be 99% of the time for you guys here, that's going to be improving physical fitness. But you could also be tackling isolation, working with vulnerable people, maybe building mental resilience, especially after the last few years. So think about those wonderful effects that being part of sport and being part of a club can have on somebody's whole well-being when you're actually using that tick box exercise to let us know those outcomes. You'll also need to tick a box to allow us to share your information with our partners so they can view your pages, find out more about what your organisation structure is, all those kind of things. Then our wonderful computer system will match you with any of our current partners that we think would be a good fit for your organisation. It's a really straightforward process then of actually clicking apply for funding. So you click apply now on any of the funds that you have been matched with through your project dashboard that you think would be a good fit for you. And it will be potentially a mixture of local authorities, depending on where you are in the country, maybe some of our national organisations that are focusing on some of the things that your club is looking to achieve with their project, as well as, of course, potentially those Sport England funds as well. You can apply for all of the different funds that you've been matched with. You could be lucky enough to receive multiple pledges from various funding partners too. One of the key parts of any crowdfunding campaign is to make sure that you tell the story of your club and the project really effectively and engagingly. So we have actually set up a template for you to use as a sports club to make sure that you can do that in a really effective way. So you'll see here just on the slide, there's an example of what that template looks like. Please do delete those headers wherever you can and replace them with something that's just a little bit more relevant to your particular club. So rather than who are we, you might have the name of the club, you might have something like our story or something like that. You would then go on to write a nice concise paragraph about the club itself, about maybe some history of the club, the community that you are working within, and you're going to fill that page with some wonderful images. You can see an example of that on this slide too. Wherever possible, include a video as well. It's a brilliant way to actually get people hooked as soon as they're looking at the page. It only needs to be about a minute and a half, if possible. Try and use members of the club or big characters that you have as part of the community or part of the club, and just let people know who you are, why you're crowdfunding, what you're crowdfunding for, and how people can help you. And that will be sharing your project, donating to your project, and maybe claiming some of those rewards, or even offering a reward to your page. That video really is a window kind of into your organization. Those people that are short on time, it's a really brilliant way to connect with those people, and they might even decide to back you just off the video alone, but it would definitely lead people into then finding out more about you and looking at the page in more detail if you've got a really lovely engaging video there. It's a really good idea to get creative with your rewards. We've mentioned that you can list rewards on your page. It is something that you would need to do in order to be approved for the Sport England funds as well. They really want to see that you're going out there, connecting with your community. And a great way to demonstrate that is to actually source some of your rewards from your wider community. So speak to local high street shops, maybe local restaurants, cafes, people within your network that have a skill set that they might be able to offer, and you would list it as a reward to have an appeal to the wider community. So here you can see things like for £17 you could have a fish and chips voucher for the local fish and chip shop, or £40 would get you a week's bunny boarding a bunny hotel, which is incredibly out there and unique. But there might be somebody, there's maybe people who have pets that would actually really appeal to. We've seen all sorts of things, you know, signed shirts, the match ball, coaching sessions, sponsorship, hiring out of the club. Maybe you want to hold an event and you're going to have tickets to that event listed as a reward. We always say things like taster sessions can work really well, or maybe tickets to a community day where you're working with other organizations to bring a kind of family feel event to the club itself, where you might have food vendors, bouncy castle, might have taster sessions on that day for the sport. So think about how to attract interest in the sport and in the club, but also give something back to the community. And a great way to do that is to list rewards that have been provided by local businesses and local people, which don't necessarily have that sports theme, but will incentivize people because it's actually something that appeals to them. They're claiming something which will be of benefit to them, but their money's going to a good place. And that's kind of a double win, if you like, for your supporters and for you as a club too. I mentioned about people fundraising on your behalf. This can be a really exciting thing to do for your crowdfunding campaign. You can decide and opt to be what we call a multiplier project. That enables people to click on the button on your page which says start fundraising. So they're going to become a fundraiser on your behalf. They do not need to enter any of their own financial details. Everything that they raise will funnel automatically onto your project page and show within your project total raised. If you wish, you can share your selection of rewards with those individual fundraisers. The benefit of running a multiplier project is you can potentially access networks that you wouldn't necessarily be able to tap into yourselves, especially if you have, let's say, a youth team that may be in full-time education. If they were to set up fundraisers themselves, they may well promote that within their networks, which will be school friends, teachers, grandparents, parents, people that you might not necessarily have a direct access to, but your club members will. So think about exciting ways to broaden your network and your audience, and multipliers could be a brilliant way to do that. Okay, now somebody who has managed to fundraise and crowdfund successfully fairly recently is the wonderful Nikki Wood. I'm hoping Nikki's been able to join us. Are you there, Nikki? I know we had a few issues with connection. I can see a blank screen at the moment. I can tell that you're here, but I can't hear or see you, unfortunately.
I am. The internet just broke up. Can you see me?
Oh, yes,
Can you see
I
me?
can see you. Oh, no, you've gone. Oh, dear. We'll leave it a little while and see if we can connect with Nikki. Worst case scenario, we'll be able to do an additional video with her. Hello, there she is. Hi, Nikki, how are you? Nikki, can you hear me? Oh dear. Just for
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's breaking up a little bit. Just for anybody that's wondering about Nikki's brilliant project, my colleague Charlie has just shared a link to that into the chat box. So do feel free to have a little look at that project while we try and navigate the connection issues. Nikki, what I think I might need you to do is to try exiting and coming back in again, just to see if that helps. And what I might do in the meantime is if I carry on with some of the slides and then we can loop
How
back
does it
down.
sound now, Zoe? If you do
I can hear you.
I think this should.
Oh, it's just.
Yeah, is this all right?
It's in and out, I think, a little bit, but I think let's go with it. And if it starts to kind of dip in and out, then we'll try and come back to it in a moment.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I think
is it really?
It's really intermittent. So I think probably the best thing to do is to come out of the room and try and come back in again. And we'll give it another go in a moment. I'll go through a couple more slides while we try and kind of refresh you, if you like. And if not, we'll see if we can loop back round to it at the end. Sorry, Nikki. Thank you. I know it's not ideal. Okay.
Okay, how's this now?
Oh, there we are. Okay. Sorry, everybody. It is a live session and these things do happen. Hopefully, Nikki will be able to jump back in a moment and her audio should be all good. Just moving on a little bit from our guest speaker slot, just to let you know about the learning and support that we have available to really encourage you and hopefully can, mentor you, if you like, to have a really successful campaign. So we do have regular webinars where we talk to our obviously supporting partners. We run a Support Wales and a Support England webinar. We also will always have a guest speaker in those. So you do get to hear a little bit about what it's like to be a project owner and what's involved. We have drop-in sessions, which we run each week. So you can come along and talk to a member of the crowdfunding team about any questions you may have to do with your particular crowdfunding campaign. Maybe it's just a project idea or about crowdfunding in general. What's really lovely about those is we often find that project owners that come to them are actually giving each other ideas as well. We've talked about collaboration. It's a brilliant way for people to have a bit of peer-to-peer support too. We have some online learning and guides, which will make sure you have access to. We have a brilliant online learning platform. Hi, Nikki.
Hello. How's
Hello. This? I can see you and I can hear you.
Is it working?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
No, don't be silly. I was just saying it's live and it happens. If anyone struggles, I can hear Nikki fine. If anybody struggles with audio, please let us know in the chat box and we'll just monitor it from there. Okay. So we'll crack on with the guest speaker bit and we'll go back to the support we offer in a minute. So Nikki, you ran a really successful campaign actually. You raised over £21,000, which is massive, from 129 supporters. That's a huge amount of supporters too. Oh, we've lost her. I feel like this might be quite fruitless trying to launch back. Oh, I'm sorry, everybody. You're bearing with us. You're doing very well. Okay. I think I'm going to make an executive decision, which is that I'm going to do a separate record with Nikki and include it in the follow-up email so we can get some really lovely content. Otherwise, I feel like we might be struggling a little bit with the audio and video on this one. I'm terribly sorry, everybody. Let's just move back through these ones. Okay, so where do we get to? The online learning and guides. So we have a online course with 4 separate modules. It's free to access. The first module is an introduction to crowdfunding, and then you have a planning, creating, and running a crowdfunding campaign. All 3 really important key steps to success. So once you've worked through that platform, you'll have all of the information and knowledge that you need to put together a really, really successful campaign. And we always recommend that everyone that's taking part in the crowdfunding campaign and the journey with you does actually take part in that if they can. Nikki, I'm going to just plow through these last couple of slides and then let's see what it's looking like in a moment with your audio, video. It might be better to try it with the camera off in a moment. If not, I was just saying what we'll probably do is I'll have a separate call with you shortly and we can create a little bit of a video that we can kind of tag on to this one.
Okay, all right.
But I can hear, to be fair, I can hear you really well now. Your video is not on. So just bear with me 2 seconds. Let me just go through the support and we'll come back to your slide.
Thank you.
That's okay. So we have the Knowledge Hub as well. That's part of our website. There is, you'll be able to find all of the information for every single stage of your crowdfunding campaign. So some really brilliant guides and advice on how to create an engaging video, connect with your audience, write press releases, all of the brilliant things that you need to be successful. We've got tailored email advice as well. So when you sign up to Crowdfunder UK, it's always a really good idea to come through the kind of sports section. That way, when you create your account, we know that you are part of a sports club. We will direct all of the relevant emails to you to signpost you in the right direction. We have a brilliant help centre as well, full of loads of troubleshooting guides, FAQs, everything to help you with any hurdles that you might face throughout the process. Any answer that you can't find in there, you can always contact our customer service team as well. They're super helpful. But I would always recommend checking the Help Centre or the Knowledge Hub first, because the chances are there's a guide on it or, or some kind of FAQs. And then that live project dashboard, which we mentioned earlier, and that is how you're going to essentially manage every single aspect of your campaign, from the applying to extra funding, to extending your project if you need to, closing it early, maybe adding some updates to your project as well, which is a brilliant way to connect with your supporters. So this is just a screenshot of the Learn platform. It's super user friendly, lots of short little videos to watch, some brilliant ways to kind of get that knowledge into your system so that you can use that for your campaign. Right, let's head back to Nikki before we jump into the Q&A, and hopefully I can hear you fine now. I think let's keep the camera off, Nikki, sorry, and then I think audio should be all good. It's going to feel a little bit strange for those of you in the record because you won't know who I'm talking to, but it'll be fine. So, Nikki, you ran a successful campaign recently, didn't you? And we've put a link to that into the chat box. So that was for the Weston Pilot Gig Rowing Club. Do you, or would you, mind telling us a little bit more about the project itself? What were you raising the money for example?
Okay, so we set up Weston's first sea rowing club. So we row pilot gigs. It's something that started in Cornwall. It's spread up through Devon and Somerset. And we've got some local clubs in North Somerset. So Clevedon has a club, Bristol has a club. But last year, our trustees, who were all keen water sports enthusiasts, set up a Cornish Pilot Gig Club for Weston, which is great. It's really significant because Weston is on the water, but we're famous as Weston Super Mud. So we have these long tidal ranges, which means you can't be on the water all the time. But it's actually, if you can get out there, it's a brilliant part of living here. So they set up Weston Pilot Gig Club last year. And so these gigs I'm talking about, and I will continue to talk about, are actually just boats, rowing boats for sea rowing. And we've got a boat on loan at the moment from the Cornish Pilot Gig Club Association, so just one boat, but obviously that's not going to make a club. So in order to have more members, more rows, and for that to last into the future, we needed to get our own boat. So we were fundraising for 2 boats for the club.
Amazing. It's funny that you mentioned Weston Supermud. I'm from Bristol originally, and it was like day trips to Weston Supermud.
Yes. Yeah.
But
which
it
is
is a
great.
lovely part of the world as well, though,
Yeah.
as you say.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to crowdfund? Was it that draw of extra funding, or had maybe some of you had experience of crowdfunding before?
No, it was the draw of extra funding. So I'll be honest about that. That was definitely the initial impetus, was that seemed like a great opportunity to do some fundraising if you've got that chance to double it. So that was our initial interest. Yeah. And we'd spoken with Sport England, I think, about another fund that we weren't eligible for, and they'd recommended looking at this.
Amazing. And so with that process of applying for the extra funding, did you find that quite straightforward?
That's super simple. That's very, very, very easy. So as long as you've got your kind of documentation in order, which is very basic documentation for the charity, and you'd expect to have to pop in, that happens really easily through the platform. So you don't really need to think about that too hard.
Amazing. I love that. That's music to our ears when people say, yeah, it's pretty simple. But I think a lot of people are quite used to maybe bid writing and things like that. And I would say comparatively, it's super straightforward, isn't it? And you can really
Yeah.
showcase the club and showcase the project in a really nice visual way through the means of having that project page. I think that trying to kind of emphasize that to people, it can be quite an exciting way to apply for some additional funding. You had a really exciting video, and I know a lot of people get quite nervous about being in front of a camera, and you kind of navigated this in a really interesting way. So you got a celebrity in your video. So you had James Cracknell. How did you manage to get somebody with such kind of gravitas to appear in your video?
Yeah, I think that was some luck, actually. I think, like, and when I get to say, like, one of the great things about doing a crowdfunder, I would say, and something that I wasn't anticipating, is you do like pull the club together with all of their ideas and all their resources. Like people in the club get involved, and so that's really interesting seeing what happens. So I think for us, we were a bit scared of doing the video, or it had been emphasized to us how important that was. I think what took the pressure off was saying, oh, it doesn't have to be a professional video, just get out with the camera. But as we started talking, we're like, actually, let's get one of our members to speak, let's get one of the local community to speak. Like, let's not just make it about us, let's show why this is important for Weston. And we have been trying to do that, and we've been trying to and been in touch with our local council and local council members. So we've got one in charge of seafronts and things, and they're quite supportive, because Weston actually, it doesn't, as a community, we don't engage with the sea enough for where we are at all. And we've got deprived wards here and all sorts of things. So is something important for Weston, I think, and that's why councillors showed interest. And we had a link to James Cracknell, which is fantastic, via one of the councillors, and actually we hope he'll come down at some point. So I think he was a bonus. I mean, we got so excited at the time when we thought we would have that. Actually, when we spoke to Sport England, they said, oh, sometimes celebrity endorsements don't work in your favour. So I would say that you don't need to feel like you need a celebrity. But actually, what was great about the video was just using a lot of our images. So we had lots of static images moving into films, and just getting a variety of people speaking on there was good.
Yeah, definitely. And Sport England are completely right. I think if you have access to it, wonderful, but it's not like that kind of magic dust which is going to mean that your project is successful. It really does come down to who's at the heart of the project. And it's a great kind of endorsement, but also having those other things within the video and the essence of kind of the club's personality in there too is what's really important. And you did that really, really well. And it does come across in that video. So well done, you. Other than the financial raise, did the crowdfunding campaign have any of those additional benefits that I mentioned at the beginning? So things like maybe increased awareness of the club, or new kind of partnerships or potential members maybe that might come off the back of launching the campaign?
I think there were loads of benefits. I think definitely new members. So at the time, we also reached out. We didn't push that too hard, because actually we need the votes before we have the members. But we did, get to know members. We did. I think it was helpful it's all very well saying you're a club and you're there and trying to get that sort of the local community people in there, like council and so on, to take notice. But when you've actually got a campaign, lots of people can get behind that. So it gives an extra push to making all those ties to other partner organisations and so on. So we got a donation from the local Lions. We got a donation from one of the great pubs in Weston. And I'd say one of the links that I saw that I just found really, really nice is they were a community club, and then you do this community fundraising, and it really works, and it does tie you to the local community because different individuals give, groups give, and so I'd say a couple of different things are actually the club comes together in the efforts, which is really good, and also getting all of those links to communities, you know, to local schools, to all the different fundraising ideas also connect you in different ways to people.
Amazing. I love that. And that is the absolute essence of what crowdfunding is all about from our perspective, is collaboration and bringing communities together and kind of doing things that benefit the community as a whole. And we all know that kind of sports can do that in so many ways. So being able to bring people together with that common purpose of kind of really driving a project forward is really, really lovely to hear. Do you have any, or kind of one piece of advice that you would give anybody here today on that's thinking about crowdfunding? Maybe they're in their early stages.
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely do it. Definitely, like, we have a committee, so definitely spend time talking to other people, because you're all going to need to pull together on it to think about the best timing for the club. Think about what the right thing to fundraise is going to be, what the club really needs, what the amount your target is, and how long you're going to leave the crowdfunder open. So give yourself a bit of time to come to those conclusions. But there'll definitely, I'm sure, be a place for like the crowdfunder in any club, really. So it's just working out how much you're going to fundraise and things. So I say that would be definitely do it. And then the thing that I really saw worked for us is what you called the multipliers, but it's having individuals within the club come up with some ideas. So we had one person came up with a 24-hour row, and then everyone in the club did it, but they kind of carried forward that fundraising. Then we had someone who did like a really fun or really original walk up a mountain carrying oars, and then they drove forward that little bit of fundraising, and it was all going in our pot. And then we had someone come and do a talk, and one of our club members arranged that and did a really lovely job on helping them arrange their talk, because they'd rode the Atlantic twice, and we sold tickets for that. So there are people will come up with quite creative things, but you're not in it on your own, so you have to get the backing from a good few people in the club, and then get members on board, know what you're get focused about it, and you'll be really surprised with what people come up with. They'll come up with much more than you could possibly do on your own, and they'll get quite excited and bring people with you. So yeah, that would be my top tip, is the kind of multiplier side of it as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nikki. Thank you for joining us as well. We're going to jump into the Q&A now. I know it's a little bit random because we can't see you, but we would still love to have you there if we have any questions coming through for you. Are you okay to hang on for a few more minutes?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so let's head into our Q&A. So Rebecca, are you there as well? Hello, thank you. Thanks for waiting in the wings there. There's nothing like a bit of a live webinar to test us. We have had some brilliant questions coming through though, so I will get started. Could a club or an organisation include money from a funding application, e.g. from a local funder, in the overall total, subject to meeting the target amount and the required numbers of supporters? So I guess from a crowdfunding standpoint, you can absolutely add in any money that comes kind of via a different organisation or a corporate sponsor or some other funding. Chances are you'd be paying it on via your own club's account, because you probably would have received it into the club itself. In terms of that going towards releasing the Sport England funding, where do you guys stand on that side of things, Rebecca? Oh, I think you might be on mute at the moment. Sorry. Can't hear you. No. Oh my goodness. There's something in the air today. We're all in different parts of the country and it's all going a bit haywire. It's not like we're in the same room. I think I know what Rebecca might say with this one, so I'll try and pick it up, and then hopefully Rebecca will be able to come in. So again, similar with the Sport England funding, they will not match any retrospective fundraising. So any monies do need to be as part of the kind of live campaign, if you like. Sports clubs and organisations can pay money through their own club onto the fundraiser. However, just bear in mind that there will need to be, first and foremost, an audit trail to kind of prove where that money's come from. That the club itself would be one supporter when it comes to the individual supporter numbers, so that's not going to necessarily boost those numbers, but also to really do bear in mind those principles of crowdfunding, which is that you want to be reaching out into your community to raise those funds. So you want to make sure that it's not necessarily a hugely significant amount of money, and it's not necessarily going to be an amount of money that kind of tips you into receiving that extra funding from Sport England. But we do often see clubs that do a bit of fundraising outside and offline of the crowdfunding campaign, maybe pay a little bit of money in, or maybe they've had a small corporate donation or funding. But Rebecca, you might be able to pick up on that one if we can hear you.
Yeah, have we got sound now?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. I just thought leave and come back. Yeah, so I wasn't sure what you touched on, but probably very similar. But we certainly don't discourage kind of additional extra funders. Obviously, you've got loads of great ones on the Crowdfunder site anyway, and we don't kind of limit campaigns as to how many they can apply for. The more the merrier to kind of amplify your campaign. I think if you've sourced, kind of got, we've also had experience of campaigns having additional local funders or kind of additional applications, which, yes, is fine if they're looking to kind of pledge towards your campaign, or if you've got evidence of that kind of additional funding. I think if it's a grant application from quite a while ago and it can't be kind of pledged via the campaign, possibly not. But obviously, you're welcome to kind of drop us a note and we can kind of clarify logistics, if that's helpful.
I'm really glad that we basically said the same things there.
Oh, good.
I was like, oh no. Okay. Our crowdfunder page is very nearly ready. However, the video is probably going to take another couple of weeks. Am I best to have everything completely ready, or can I submit it for the match funding application with a note saying the video will be ready before the crowdfunder launches? That's very much a funding one, I would say, from Sport.
Yeah, and I think we both probably might have touched on it earlier. And I think ideally get as much as you can ready for when you come in to us as possible. But equally, it isn't kind of like a deal breaker if you haven't got a video. Obviously, we find it kind of maximizes the impact of a campaign. And B, if it's not quite ready, we can again help you kind of have tips and suggestions as to how to do that or what it might be best to look like, and we can kind of help you achieve that. Equally, like Nikki said, it doesn't have to be a kind of big production video. Just go around with your camera phone. They're often the best ones, speaking to voices within the club. So yeah,
definitely showcase that personality. People support people as much as they will do your project. So as throughout the page as well, as much as you can, kind of show the personality of the club. This one from Sarah: could a project apply for both of the Sport England funds? And also, what is the time frame for decisions on an application?
You can come in for both campaigns, both funds. Ultimately, you'd only be approved for one of our match funding schemes, mainly because they're both quite different as well, and we'll only pledge towards the one project. In terms of timeframes, it can vary. We aim to kind of have a really quick turnaround on decision processes and also feedback, because ultimately, when you're coming in, it's quite it's a live campaign, or kind of you're looking to go live. So we kind of want that to be as an iterative process as possible. So if you've kind of done all the webinars and looked at all the fab advice that Crowdfunder has and come in, you could probably get a decision in one day or later that afternoon, or we can kind of have a bit of back and forth with you in terms of feedback, but it can happen in a couple of days.
Amazing, thank you. We've had a question for Nikki come through. Nikki, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. Nikki, how did you source your rewards? Have you got any tips for others that might be thinking, how do I get out there to the community and bring in some interesting rewards?
Yeah, that can be a little bit, it sort of gathers momentum as people, because people find the concept of the rewards quite hard, I found, to start off with. And so once you've got a few, then you can start to get other club members doing it. So I asked a lot of the members to start finding rewards and gave some examples. I would say and we got there in the end, but that bit takes longer than you think. Actually, I'd say some really good ones are food ones always, and smaller rewards like cafes and so on. You'll be surprised how many links your club members have to local businesses and things that you didn't think of. They might just have a friend at a restaurant and they'll be able to get a voucher. So I'd use what you've got firstly. And then we did do some walk-ins and some sort of cold asks on things, and with mixed success, actually, I would say. So the main way for us to get rewards was kind of through friends or friends of friends asking for things, sometimes through work. Like for us, sorry to name check someone, but we had someone who worked for Yo Valley, so therefore they were able to ask for some products that related to that. And then people got a bit creative, so we had someone doing power washing for other people, and you can see all the ideas we had for awards, which were quite diverse in the end. But yeah, it definitely took me a while to build them up and to get members to start donating them, and actually people still were donating them once we'd gone live.
Amazing, I love that. And I think what a brilliant incentive, not only for your supporters, but as how people can actually get behind you. So actually having a call to action for your potential kind of crowd, and one of them being, you offer us a reward. Let us know what you've got.
I think as well, it was a great idea, Nikki, as you said, to kind of really, for the whole club to embrace it and everyone to kind of coming together. Because if it's all on the one person to source a load of rewards for your campaign, it could probably be quite demoralising, can't it? So yeah, I think that was a really great idea.
Everybody likes to feel a part of it, don't they? And if you give people the opportunity, they will definitely rise to the occasion if you give them a chance to do so. Just a really interesting one. We talk about the difference between a draft campaign and a live campaign. We had a question about how do people view a draft page or a draft campaign. The only people that will be able to view that are people kind of behind the scenes, such as ourselves at Crowdfunder, or if you put in that application with Sport England, for example, they can view your page while it's still in draft mode, and they'll be able to communicate with you. You'll be able to make any edits and amendments if needs be. The other thing that you can do is you'll have access to something called a preview link. So you can share that link with your friends and family, your club members, to get some feedback, maybe on the page content or reward ideas. But that link will only last for a certain amount of time. People will not be able to use it to donate to your page. You would need to share the live project link with them in order to actually bring in donations. But you can share your kind of temporary page around if you so wish to get some feedback from others. Okay, just 1 minute left. We had a question from Judith. I'll just fire through this one, asking roughly how much time would you need to dedicate to a crowdfunding campaign each week when it's live? Nikki, you'll probably agree with this, that it can be quite a full-time job for the course, especially of the live campaign. It's difficult to drill it down to an amount of time, but I would say having people around you is key. So if you are a volunteer or you're already working in a different role, to be able to delegate different jobs to people, such as, the social media posts, for example, is a really good thing to do. You want to be posting, 3-4 times a week at least, especially at varying points in the campaign, plus posting those updates to your campaign, potentially sourcing more rewards. So Nikki, what was the kind of timings for you guys? How much time did you think you put into it each week?
I've got no idea, but I know that it had to be a priority on certain days. So I'd say it's definitely like 4 hours a week. But I also have someone, like one of our club members is really good at comms, which helped a bit with all that promotion and maybe helping writing different bits of text. So we made a lot of things a team effort, and I was focused on maintaining the site and updating things. So some weeks it's not so much, some weeks it's a lot more. So sorry, that's not helpful, but definitely you need to know that you've got a bit of time to do it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to the planning stages, guys, as well. So the more time you can put towards the planning, the easier the running of the campaign will be. But you do need to make sure you've got somebody that can be reactive and that you're using people's skill sets throughout, throughout planning and running as well. If you have any further questions, you can, of course, contact Sport England. Their email address is on the screen now, and we'll make sure we include that in our email, or pop along to one of our drop-ins and ask, a question specifically about your campaign or anything that you might have thought about from today's session that stirs up some questions for you as well. Thank you so much, Rebecca and Nikki, for joining us today. You've done a really, really brilliant job of inspiring others to hopefully take part in a bit of crowdfunding. I'll move on to the next slide now, which is just the next steps for everybody. So take a look at some other projects that have come before you. Make use of our Learn platform. And then look at those other extra funds. Check out some extra funding. See what's available to you in your part of the country. Have a look at some projects. Get some inspiration. And ultimately, talk to those around you within the club and think about taking that plunge, because there can be so many benefits to running a crowdfunding campaign for your club.